All right, it's good to see you again. I know the last thing the world needs is another LeVeon Bell video. Some of you are sick of it, but there has been so much misinformation, so many skewed statistics about the financial terms of the LeVeon Bell contracts, not only from the Steelers, but from the Jets as well. We're just seeing it from print media, we're seeing it from radio, we're seeing it from TV. So much misinformation has been put out there. We're going to put out one more video just trying to tie this up into one final bow, one final little chapter here. So for the 5 of you left on the planet who care at all about LeVeon Bell and his finances, this is the video for you. I want to start with this, where LeVeon Bell was one season ago in the summer of 2018. I want to talk about how NFL people, executives view running backs, and specifically how they look at LeVeon Bell and why LeVeon Bell was thinking about some of the things of his thinking. First of all, LeVeon Bell being a running back, NFL teams do not like to pay running backs much in the first place. I'm one of those people who really genuinely do not like to pay a lot of money to running backs. I think they're more replaceable than other parts. I think they don't have a very long shelf life. LeVeon Bell knew this, and when he was trying to decide whether or not to sign with the Steelers or whether to dive into free agency, he already knows that there's one strike against him from a free agency standpoint or from a Steelers standpoint either, is that he's a running back, and it's just going to be a limited amount of money that he can get as a running back. Even a great running back like him, even a running back who can catch like a wide receiver and run like a top running back. The second strike that he has against him is a high volume of touches. During the first 5 seasons, and he was injured partly one of those seasons, but for the most part, for those first 5 seasons, LeVeon Bell racked up an insanely high number of touches for a player period, be it a wide receiver, a running back, a tight end, any offensive position on the field. He ran an unusually high number of plays as a running back for the Steelers, more than most running backs by far. But on top of that, he's also catching more passes out of the backfield than most wide receivers catch for most NFL teams. So he had a double burden, and I don't blame the Steelers for that. If you have a great player, you use him, you get the ball in his hands any way you can, not only as a running back, but as a wide receiver as well. So I'm not fussing at the Steelers about that, but the fact is, over the first 5 years, LeVeon Bell had racked up an insanely high number of touches, a very high volume. So now he's got 2 strikes against him. Not only is he a running back that NFL teams don't like to pay, but he is also a running back with a high volume of touches and contact. And you have to figure the NFL teams are just going to start thinking, hey, how much tread does this guy have left on those tires? How much life does he have left in those legs? Which makes it more urgent for LeVeon Bell to get into free agency as quickly as possible if he doesn't like the Steelers' offer, which he didn't. And it makes it more urgent for him to try to get to free agency as quickly as possible. When you get in season number 6, these are his choices. I either sign the franchise tag, which I don't like, I sign the Steelers contract, which I don't like, or I sit out the season. So from LeVeon Bell's standpoint, he was going to lose no matter what. The only way LeVeon Bell wins is if the Steelers release him or trade him, especially if they release him, and he gets to hit free agency in 2018. Which the Steelers would not do. And I want to stop on that point for just a second. This is not a propaganda attack on the Pittsburgh Steelers. I'm not fussing at them for the way they like to do business with their rolling guarantees. What in blue blazes is a rolling guarantee? We'll get to that in a minute. I'm not fussing at them for putting the first franchise tag on LeVeon Bell in 2017. That's incredibly normal, even though NFL players hate franchise tags. I'm in favor of getting rid of franchise tags at this point. It's perfectly normal to do that. The problem, the biggest problem that I have with the Pittsburgh Steelers and the way that they've handled the situation is that second franchise tag right there. It's incredibly unusual for an NFL player to get hit with a second franchise tag, and yet that's exactly what happened to LeVeon Bell. If you're the Steelers, I think you should already get a clue. You've already hit him with the first franchise tag, you've already had him for 5 seasons, you've already used him up pretty good, and now here you are hitting him with a second franchise tag, in effect trying to push him, or bully is a stronger word, into taking this contract that you were offering that you think is such a good deal. Now, my thought for the Pittsburgh Steelers is this: if you're convinced that your deal is the best, that if he were to hit free agency in 2018 and could not do better than this, then why wouldn't you just go ahead and let him hit free agency? Why would you try to hit him with a second franchise tag? And just to show you how unusual it is, I think one player, on average, one player out of the entire NFL, 1,500 players, one player gets hit with a franchise tag about every 2 seasons. So it's really unusual for this to happen. It's especially unusual for it to happen to a running back. It's even more unusual for it to happen to a running back who is as great as LeVeon Bell. So that's the only prickly part that I have with what the Steelers did. If you're convinced, as the Pittsburgh Steelers, if you're convinced that your offer is better than anything that he can get in free agency, then why not just go ahead and let him hit free agency? If he gets out there, he doesn't like the other offers that he sees, then he'll come back to you and your offer. But that's not what the Steelers did. The Steelers instead hit him with that very unusual second franchise tag and tried to force him into taking this deal. So now if you're LeVeon Bell, you have a choice. Do I sign this franchise tag? Do I take this deal that I don't like? Or do I just sit out the season? No matter what, season 6 is going to be disappointing for me if I am LeVeon Bell. Let's take a look very quickly at what the Steelers were actually offering, because I think that's very important. There's some details in there that a lot of people just kind of try to leave out that are really very important. The initial overall viewpoint is 5 years, $70 million. Now, this is mistake number one. I'm going to point out about 3 or 4 different mistakes that people are making when they look at these deals and try to criticize LeVeon Bell and try to say that Bell is an idiot, but if he's happy, we're happy for him, and try to say things like LeVeon Bell's agent should be fired. This is mistake number one right here, looking at the overall value. The Pittsburgh Steelers offer is 5 years, $70 million. He eventually signed with a 4-year deal, $52.5 million. Here's 2 mistakes right here with that. 5 years, 70, 4 years, 25. Yes, this is bigger. It's pretty significantly bigger, at least when you look at the years and the amount. This is not the most important number to look at, however. I'm going to take my time with this so that you can see what I'm talking about. Many of you have already heard about this term. This is the most important term. It's not the only important term, but this is the most important one. This is called guaranteed at signing. This is not overall guarantees. This is not guarantees in general. This is an important term called guarantees at signing. The Steelers were offering anywhere from $10 to $21.5 million. Why the 2 different numbers, Ben? Because we've heard reports that the number was as low as $10 million guaranteed at signing. I'm not going to go with that number. I think that's unusually low. I think that's ridiculously low. If in fact the Steelers were only offering $10 million guaranteed at signing, that's a joke. They should be embarrassed and ashamed of themselves, but I don't think that's the number. I think the better number is $21.5 million. Ben, where are you getting that number from? That comes from a $10 million signing bonus and an $11.5 million base salary that he would have had for the Steelers for his first season. This is the guarantee. Now, a large number of you are hearing, and this is mistake number 2 right here with the first 2 years. A lot of you are hearing this from your local TV personality, from your national TV host, from your favorite local radio host, or from your favorite national radio guy, that the Pittsburgh Steelers were offering $33 million guaranteed. I even used this as a basis for commentary in a video back in the fall. We now know from the guys who really do their homework, these are the Ian Rappaports, the Adam Schefters, the Mike Florios, these are the consistent reports that have come out over the past few months now, not the initial reports. We now know that there was never any $33 million guarantee on the table. The question then becomes, Ben, if you're saying that there was no $33 million guarantee on the table, why is my favorite radio host, my favorite TV host, why are they still sticking to that $33 million number? And this is the reason that they're just not doing their homework. And I understand that. This isn't a criticism of them. They are obliged, if they have a 5-day-a-week job, they are obliged to talk about and opinionate on literally dozens and dozens of topics every week. And there's just no way to do a deep dive on that. But we know now that what the Pittsburgh Steelers were offering was something called a rolling guarantee. What in blue blazes is a rolling guarantee? And here it is. For the first season, you get, if you're LeVeon Bell, you get your $11.5 million base salary plus your $10 million signing bonus. Together, that makes $21.5 million. That's all the Steelers were offering. But when 2019 rolls around, when 2019 gets there, there's a window there where the Steelers can decide to either cut LeVeon Bell, and all he gets is that $21.5 million, or they can guarantee, this is where the rolling guarantee part comes in, they can guarantee his 2019 season at that point. So this guarantee is not a guarantee. It's a rolling guarantee, which means when each season comes up, The Pittsburgh Steelers have the right, based on the contract here, they have the right to decide if they want to keep Le'Veon Bell or not. And that's where the $33 million guaranteed comes from, that you're hearing all over the radio and all over the media and all over even print. Even some guys who should know better because they're in the industry a lot. There was never any $33 million, and that's a huge stress point for all of this. There was no $33 million guarantee. It was all part of a rolling guarantee that was put together for his first 2 seasons. Basically, $11.5 million the first year, plus the $10 million signing bonus. Then when 2019 gets there, if the Pittsburgh Steelers want to guarantee 2019, they can, but they don't have to. And if they don't, for whatever reason, if they decide in 2019 that we just don't like Le'Veon Bell being on Twitter, or he's injured, so we're going to walk away from him, or he just looks slow and old because we've used him up for 6 seasons, no matter what the deal is, and they would have every right to do that, they could let him go, and Le'Veon Bell would have nothing but the $21.5 million to show for it. Now, some of you would say, well, Ben, that's okay for Le'Veon Bell because he'd still get to go out on free agency again before he even hits the age of 30. The problem with that is this. If the Steelers in 2019 were to look at him, if he had signed this contract, if they were to look at him and say, he's got too many touches now, he looks a little slow, that's the way the rest of the NFL is going to look at him when he hits free agency. If he gets injured in 2018 by stepping on the field for this contract here, and all of a sudden the Steelers in 2019 decide to let him go because he got an injury and they don't want to pay an injured running back, that's the way the rest of the NFL is going to look at him. So this right here, this rolling guarantee thing that the Pittsburgh Steelers were offering, which, by the way, the Steelers do this for most of their players. They didn't do it for Ben Roethlisberger, but they do this for most of their players. And some of you, especially Steelers fans, are going to tell me that the Steelers organization is an organization of integrity, that they do right by their players, and generally that is true. But my question would be this. If you intended all the time to bring Le'Veon Bell back for that second season, if that was your plan, then why not just go ahead and guarantee it? Why not just go ahead and guarantee both of the first 2 seasons? And that's the question that Le'Veon Bell was asking. And the Steelers' answer is this: it's our policy not to do that. And then Le'Veon Bell would basically say, in effect, well, you did it for Ben Roethlisberger. And the Steelers would say, well, he's our quarterback, and we made an exception for him. We're not going to make an exception for you. So to stress this point once again, a rolling guarantee means basically this is a series of 1-year deals. Each year, the Steelers have a window right about the time the league year starts in early March, whereby they can decide if they want to bring the guy back for the next season. And that's fine if you can get away with doing business that way. Le'Veon Bell basically raised his hand and said, I don't want to do it that way. I'd really just rather have the guarantees. I appreciate that you have integrity. I appreciate that you treat your players right. This is his verbiage back in 2018. It's certainly not now. But I would just rather have the guarantees. But the Steelers would not do that. They were consistent in offering a rolling guarantee, which is not a guarantee. And that's just where that stands, okay? So $21.5 million is the guarantee that the Steelers were offering, not the $33 million that you're hearing from other people. So you go back here and you look at this. 5 years, $70 million sounds great until I look, and only $21.5 million is guaranteed at signing. I step over here and I look at the Jets' offer. Now, I want to insert this really quick. Comparing these 2 offers is really not fair. It's really apples and oranges. Why? Because this deal was made, this offer was made a year earlier. This deal was made when Le'Veon Bell is not only a year older, but now all of a sudden he has the stigma of being the only guy who sat out the entire season because he wanted more money. So that's going to turn off a certain number of NFL teams who just aren't going to want to sign him in free agency for no other reason than that he sat out the previous season. So that would suppress his market some. How much? I don't know. Maybe not much at all, but it's certainly going to suppress his market some. So comparing these 2 deals is really apples and oranges anyway, but we're going to compare the 2 deals anyway because the Jets' offer is better. $27 million is the amount of money that the Pittsburgh Steelers, the New York Jets offered, guaranteed at signing. That is $27 million compared to $21.5 million under any kind of math, and this is not spinning of numbers. This isn't trying to evoke propaganda. If I had a son who was playing football and trying to make a choice, if I had a player who I was an agent for and was trying to make a choice, if I was trying to make this choice, this is the number I would want. $27 million guaranteed. The first 2 seasons, you can see the red line here, the first 2 seasons are guaranteed. And that's very important. The first 2 seasons base salary are guaranteed along with the signing bonus. This deal here isn't great either. Had LeVeon Bell been able to hit free agency in 2017, he would have beat this deal by a pretty wide margin. If he'd hit free agency in 2018, he would have beat this deal by some margin. The Jets' offer, just to be clear, the Jets' offer is not significantly better than the Steelers' offer, but it is clearly better. And because of this number right here, $27 million. So when you're trying to compare 5 years, $70 million to 4 years, $52.5 million, it simply doesn't work. You can't compare those two because of the guaranteed money involved. The Pittsburgh Steelers, if they wanted to, could release him right there, and all he would get out of that $70 million would be this. The New York Jets, a year later, after there's not many other competitors for LeVeon Bell at that price range, the New York Jets offered a 2-season guarantee, which there is no wiggle room out of at all. As it sits right now, if LeVeon Bell were to get injured sometime during the team workout, sometime during a private individual workout, if he never plays a single down for the New York Jets, he is still locked in to this $27 million. Guaranteed, no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Even if he gets injured, if he plays poorly during the next 2 seasons, he's still guaranteed $27 million. If he gets injured during the next 2 seasons, if he looks slow during the next 2 seasons, the New York Jets have guaranteed those first 2 seasons. And that's a lot bigger commitment than this deal, even though at the outset that 5 years, $70 million looks important. Now, I'm going to take this to an absurd point, but it shows the point, and this happens in a lot of NFL contracts. You'll see it with Landon Collins' contract with the Washington Redskins just a couple of weeks ago. The Steelers could have doubled this. The Steelers could have doubled this. 5 years, $140 million if they wanted to, and it wouldn't have made the deal any better or any sweeter if they didn't raise the guaranteed at signing. As a matter of fact, the more you raise this number, and this is a deep point for some folks, the more you raise this number without raising the 21.5 guaranteed, the more likely they are to cut him at an earlier point, because that salary cap number has gotten larger every single season, whereas the dead cap number that it would take to release him and the cap savings would actually get worse, and your cap savings each year would get better. So the Steelers here offering 5 years and $70 million is not doing anything for LeVeon Bell if they're not willing to back it up. And that's really where I have the biggest problem with the Steelers contract. I don't fault them for offering this, but this is not a very large guarantee, and LeVeon Bell just wanted more. Now, I want to cover this as well. Did LeVeon Bell hit the jackpot? Certainly he didn't. Did he get everything he wanted when he hit free agency finally? Absolutely not. He was hoping for a bigger number than this. He was hoping for bigger cap numbers than what he actually wound up getting. I think this deal here is at $13.1 million per season. On average, he didn't get anywhere near the cap number per season that he wanted to get, but he did get closer to the guaranteed money that he wanted to get, and he did finally get to hit free agency and at least find out what his value is. As I said, had he hit free agency in 18 or in 17, he would have had a better deal. He would have been younger. He wouldn't have had the stigma of having sat out for a season. He also, perhaps in 17, wouldn't have had that 5th year of high volume touches on his resume as well. Now, one other thing I want to talk about, this is another mistake that people are making when they're comparing these contracts, when they're calling LeVeon Bell an idiot, when they're saying that his agent should be fired. This is it right here, this tag plus bit. Some people are simply saying, well, if he'd have signed for the franchise tag and then hit free agency, he would have been better off. And what these people are failing to do, and this is a lot of people, widespread, these people are failing to assign any risk to playing on a franchise tag. And let me tell you, there is a ton of risk for a player who plays on a franchise tag. NFL players hate the franchise tag. They despise it. They despise it so much that they are very often willing to just go ahead and sign a deal with their team that is not as good as they could get in free agency, because they do not want to get hit with that franchise tag. If they get hit with the franchise tag and they get injured, or they just don't look as good during that franchise year as they have during their previous season, then that money that they make when they finally hit free agency is going to shrink. And this is important. This is why the worst move that Le'Veon Bell could have made last year was to sign the franchise tag. A lot of people are saying this, and this is very common to hear: I wouldn't turn down $14.5 million. It's $14.5 million guaranteed. I wouldn't turn that down. Well, listen, $14.5 million is a lot of money to anybody. Me, you, Le'Veon Bell. But the worst thing he could do was sign that second franchise last season, because if he gets hurt in 2018 playing on the franchise tag, both of these deals evaporate. They disappear. He will not see any kind of a number like this at all. He'll be playing for table scraps. He'll be playing for a 1-year, $8 million deal, or he would be playing for a 2-year, $10 million deal at best if he gets injured playing on the franchise tag in 2018. Could have happened in 17, but certainly could have happened in 18. Now also, if he doesn't get injured, but if he just shows up a step slower, if it starts to look like, and listen, this is no secret, Le'Veon Bell knows, what everybody in the NFL knows, what the Steelers know, what the Jets know, is that at a certain point, every player, but especially running backs, their performance just drops. It disappears. Your body just catches up to you. The NFL is a violent game, and your performance may be going like this for a while, and then all of a sudden it's just going to drop. Nobody knows when. Bell doesn't know when. The Steelers didn't know when. The Steelers, because of that, were wanting to try to set up some kind of a deal where they could get out of the contract whenever it was convenient for them. I don't think they planned to try to stiff Le'Veon Bell, certainly not, but they wanted to have that control, that flexibility. That's why the Steelers do these kinds of rolling guarantees with their players. It offers the Steelers, not the players, it offers the Steelers more flexibility and more control, and that's fine if you're the Steelers. It's not so good if you're one of the players, especially if you're Le'Veon Bell. So if you're Bell and you're playing on this franchise tag in 2018 and you look a little slower, you don't look as sharp as you used to, you look just a little bit off, guess what? This deal evaporates, so does this deal. There will be no long-term free agent contract for you at all, not of this ilk or this one here for the Jets. So the worst thing that Le'Veon Bell could have done was to play that franchise tag. So for folks who are trying to add this franchise tag in and then say, well, he could have gotten the $14.5 million plus whatever he made in free agency, there is a massive amount of risk involved here, and that may not mean much to me or you, but if you're Le'Veon Bell and you know you're going to have one, not 2 or 3 chances, you're going to have one chance in free agency to try to make your money. The worst thing you can do is play under this franchise tag. It is a massive, massive risk, and I cannot overstate that enough. So when people try to take the franchise tag and add whatever they think he would have made during his first 2 seasons, that simply does not work because of the risk involved here with playing on this franchise tag. The best thing he could do was not sign that franchise tag. He would have been better off signing the Steelers contract than he would have signing the franchise tag. I'm going to wrap this thing up. But one other thing I want to cover here, and this is really for the people who think Le'Veon Bell's agent should be fired. Okay, these are the non-rookie quarterbacks, non-rookie running backs who signed the highest guaranteed at signing deals. So these numbers here that you see are the highest guaranteed at signing numbers for running backs. Now, lest you think I'm trying to be tricky or pull the wool over your eyes, why didn't I include rookies on this? Some of you may know, some of you may not. Rookies in the NFL, if they're drafted in the first half of the first round, their whole contract is guaranteed. It's not negotiated, it's not talked out, there's not even a need for an agent to verify this. If you're drafted in the first half of the first round, your whole contract is guaranteed. So you're basically automatically going to get a large guarantee number. Even if you're drafted in the second half of the first round, your first 3 seasons are automatically guaranteed no matter what. If you're drafted in the second round, I think your first 2 years are guaranteed. So I left the rookies out of this because there are no negotiations, there's no experience, there's no nothing. It's just wherever you're drafted, that's the deal you get. So these are the non-rookies, these are the running backs, these are the guys who have signed for the biggest guaranteed money at signing, and Le'Veon Bell has the largest. Okay, even for those of you who don't like the Jets deal because you think my potential with the Steelers is higher. He got the biggest guaranteed at signing money of any running back in the NFL right now, except for the guys who were just drafted in the first half of the first round as rookies. So you have Johnson here, David Johnson. He's making 20. He got 25 guaranteed. Bell even got more than Todd Gurley got. Todd Gurley got 22 at signing. Now, the longer that Todd Gurley plays on that contract, and everybody expects him to be healthy, and everybody expects him, but the Rams do not have to re-sign him every season. They don't have to guarantee his money every year. The longer Todd Gurley plays on that contract, the better that contract will be. But all he got at signing, guaranteed at signing, was $22 million. Now, for those of you who think, why are you just zeroing in on the guaranteed money? Without that guaranteed money, these numbers don't mean anything. They're just fluff and puff. Some of you say, well, if the Steelers offer a 5 years, $70 million doesn't mean anything, then the Jets offer a 4 years and $52.5 million doesn't mean anything. And that's exactly right. Here's how teams do business with NFL players. It's a lot like a rich man who marries a good-looking woman when they're both 25 or 30 years old. And when that guy turns 40 and his wife turns 40 and his wife isn't as pretty anymore and he divorces her and he goes and marries a younger yoga instructor who's better looking at the age of 25, this is exactly what NFL teams are doing with many of their players. Now, I'm not in favor of fully guaranteed contracts for NFL players. I don't like that idea at all, but I am in favor of getting rid of the franchise tag. Originally, when the franchise tag came out in the early 90s, it was designed for small market teams, or at least we are told this. It was designed for small market teams to be able to have some leverage to keep their players that they wanted to keep, so that some teams in big markets like New York or Los Angeles wouldn't just gobble up all those players, and that has worked. But what has also happened is NFL teams use this as leverage against all their players. Even the players who don't get franchised know, hey, if I don't suck this contract from this team, the NFL team may just very well decide to franchise tag me, in which case I'm stuck playing high risk for one season on this franchise tag that they hit me with. So I would be all in favor of letting go of this franchise tag. The New York Jets are going to do the same thing, I would think. I don't know this, but don't be surprised if the New York Jets, after 2 seasons, cut LeVeon Bell, if for no other reason than that they can save money on the cap. 13.7 would be his cap hit for that season. The dead money would only be $4 million that season. They could very well cut him, so I don't offer the Jets any more love than I do the Steelers. Other than that, they backed it up with that first 2 season guarantee. I know I haven't answered everything. I hope we've tried to clear up some of the muddied waters that is the LeVeon Bell stuff, and some of these things that you're hearing on radio and TV. We've tried to point out where the flaws are with those things as well. By the way, I'm going to close with this. For those of you who think, hey, I would have just gone ahead and signed the Pittsburgh Steelers offer, that is where most of the NFL sits, okay? Most of the NFL, if they're a great player, they just go ahead and take this offer, or they take the first franchise tag and then move on to free agency. That's what Bell wanted to do. He wanted to just go ahead and take that first franchise tag and move on to free agency. The deals are not so drastically different that you couldn't be satisfied taking the Steelers deal and hope that you were healthy enough or lovable enough to hang around for that second, third season. But the Jets offer is clearly better because of the $27 million guarantee that's attached to it. Thank you so much for listening. We'll see you next time. Have a great day. Bye.